Hello everyone, and welcome to my Ice Strike Falling Thunder walkthrough for patch 0.5. Just want to preface by saying I've had an incredible amount of fun playing this character this league while everyone else is running with the martial artist. Nothing against that, but I tend to prefer my Invoker, so I've spent a lot of time min-maxing it, and I want to showcase that with you all today. I do want to preface this by saying this build isn't about chasing the highest PoE number. It's about creating a character that feels incredible to play. Ice Strike as your bread and butter for clearing, Falling Thunder as the hammer that deletes rares and bosses, and with enough defense to stay in the fight instead of falling over to every mistake. In this guide, I'm going to walk through every decision, from the gear to the passive tree and the gem setup, and explain the reasoning behind each one, so that even if your budget is different from mine, you'll understand how to build the character instead of just copying it. Alright, let's get started. First thing we're going to look at is our ascendancy. So the choices I've made here reflect as such. You've got magnitude and increased extra cold damage. We go over here to take critical hits, ignore enemy resistances. That is pretty pivotal to our setup. We go up here to get the Lead Me Through Grace for our spirit from our body armor. This is our primary source of spirit for our build, so keep that in mind. Keep going over here, and we do take and protect me from harm. I like this choice because everything else in the build prevents other types of damage, but it doesn't do anything for physical damage. So by taking this, you're adding an extra defensive layer into the equation that makes you even more resilient to all the things the game is going to throw at you. So looking at our character panel here, we are 79% armor, 58% evasion, res capped, and as much as I could get on chaos. If you can get res capped here, that's great, but making sure you have a decent amount is pretty important as well. You'll notice we have 2100 life and 1300 energy shield. This probably screams a low number for most of you. Energy shield is just the first layer of defense. It is not the primary layer of defense. As I mentioned earlier, this is an attrition style gameplay build, so you are expected to take hits, and your life pool and your life flask are going to be what keep you alive and sustained throughout the fight. If you're not comfortable using a health flask very often, this build may not be for you. But if you are comfortable using it, it's more than okay to use and keep going with. Okay, next I'm going to go over gearing. There are a few critical pieces to the build that I consider mandatory for it to function in the way I've got it designed. The first one is going to be your chess piece. The chess piece itself must have 2900 evasion rating or higher in order to have the amount of spirit needed to run all of our spirit buffs that we have picked out. So just any type of split strike vest will suffice for that. Any stats on there that you want to get, I went with chaos, resist, and deflection, but you can choose other resists or whatever floats your boat in that department. But having 2900 evasion is the most critical piece there. Secondly, unset rings in both slots. This is required because we are using a lot of extra moves that do not take up a lot of time when we use them, but they are essential for when we do use them. And those extra 2 move slots are important for that. The third requirement for the build is Astramentus. This is one of our only uniques that we run. You'll see I do have Mage Blood that is not required for this build. It's a nice to have, but I'll show you something that'll work in its place in just a moment. But Astramentus does a couple of things for us. It allows us to run any move that we want, whether it be dexterity based or intelligence based or even shrink based. It negates having any cap on our skill gems, so we can use as many of whatever type that we want. And thirdly, because of our instill on our amulet, Jack of all trades, we get a massive damage boost from that, as Jack of all trades , gives you 2% damage per 5 of your lowest attribute. 2% damage per 5 of your lowest attribute, 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 And for me, that's intelligence at 187%. So we're getting quite a juicy damage boost from having that installation. Every other piece of gear on here is whatever you can clam together that is the best. Good movement speed boots with resist is what I've gone with. Your gloves are a big damage boost for you, so the best gloves that you can acquire are going to be important. The ones I was running before this were just double flats with attack speed, and they did just fine. But if you can manage to get the level of all melee skills and attack speed and or crit bonus, that's even better. This is a crit heavy build. We rely on critical strike a lot and our critical damage bonus a lot. So the more of that you can stack on anywhere, the better. For our headpiece, as long as it has critical strike on there, you're good to go. Ideally, in a perfect world, you want to look for that +1 maximum power charge corruption. That's going to take us from 6 to 7 on power charge count. So the more power charges that we can get, the more stronger Falling Thunder is, and the longer that our charge staff buff lasts. On the quarterstaff, having a high physical DPS is extremely important because almost all of our moves convert physical to elemental damage. So having that starting point of high physical is important. I've gone with increased physical and adds physical here. The third stat line for the prefix, I prefer to go with increased elemental damage with attacks. I have tested it in PoB with going with an even higher physical DPS staff, and with that stat line mentioned here, it seems to be about even. So this is a little bit easier to find than higher physical damage staff. So if you can get that combination, that's perfect. Again, as I mentioned, we are crit heavy, so a Sinister quarterstaff is going to be your most ideal base. Starts with 12% crit chance, and if you can get crit chance on the suffix of the quarterstaff, that's even better. All right, that should just about do it for gear. Just looking at our flasks, a decent flask, 75% recovered is what I've got with 62 charges. That gives me 12 uses of it. In gameplay, I do not run out of flasks. That's not going to be a concern. You're not using it that much. Same thing with mana flask, just something good and strong will suffice here. My charms I have picked out are for what I run into situationally a lot while I'm mapping. So bleeding, frozen, and ignited are the three that I've chosen to negate. You can mix and match those to your preferences however you see fit. All right. So that should just about do it for gear. Let's move over to skill gems. Alright, so starting off with our skill gems, we have our main skill, Ice Strike. Slotted in, we have Concentrated Area, Rapid Attacks, Elemental Armament 2, Rage 2. This is where we're getting our Rage from for our next skill we'll go over in just a moment. And Osin's Oath. This is our main mana sustain method, so if you have mana issues, pop a flask, because sometimes you will run out, but for the most part this does keep you alive and sustain with mana. And then next up is our big boy, Falling Thunder. We've got Rage Forge 2 slotted in. It is consuming some of the rage generated from Ice Strike, but it gives a huge 35% damage boost to Falling Thunder, which is just awesome. We also have Heightened Charges in there for chance at double damage. Perpetual Charge to give a 25% chance to not remove power charges when using the skill. Nova Projectiles. I prefer this because it does help with full screen clear instead of it coming all the way out in front of you in a cone. So this is very, very fun to put in. And lastly, I do run Breach Lord's Amalgam. When I last picked this up, it was about 12 divs, so not terribly expensive. But it does make your Falling Thunder projectiles come back to you, effectively giving you twice the amount of damage and twice the coverage from each Falling Thunder that you use. We do use Tempest Bell here. This is primarily when we're not using Falling Thunder and we just want to Ice Strike something to death. We use Tempest Bell to supplement it. Slotted in, we have Magnified Area 2, Overabundance 2, Heavy Swing, Durability, and Elemental Armament 2. Just helps buff out the damage a little bit. Charge staff, we should always strive to keep this active as often as possible. To help out with that, we have Prolonged Duration 2, Elemental Armament 2 for some more damage. Perpetual Charge, same thing as Falling Thunder, chance at not removing your power charges. Blazing Critical, this is free DPS for us because we are critting so often. This basically has 100% uptime, so it's an extra 15% of damage as fire. And we do have Lightning Mastery slotted in here to help it out just a little bit more. We do use Flicker Strike, however, it is not a primary move for us. Every once in a while I'll break it out if I just feel like it, or if I'm using it for a travel skill, or if I run out of my Falling Thunders, which I do need to make mention that Breachlord's Amalgam does put a cooldown on Falling Thunder. You have 3 uses of it, and it has a 6-second recharge rate. Now, if you're just going through mapping and you're using your Ice Strike and you're using the supplementary, or just to wipe the screen clear, or you've got a boss in front of you, that's what it's designed for. It is not designed to spam Falling Thunder, because Breachlord's Amalgam will prevent you from doing that. And you don't want to get caught with your hand in the cookie jar and not have one of these on tap. So yeah, Flicker Strike is excellent to use in those downtimes when you want to let it recharge just a little bit. We are using a couple of spirit buffs, as we mentioned with our gearing section, and here they are. First one, Herald of Ice, our primary AoE. Slotted in we have Overreach, Cold Attunement, Elemental Armament 2, and Cold Mastery for some extra damage. Herald of Thunder is interesting for us because it is not a DPS move in the traditional sense. It does some damage, but we're using this as one of our automated power charge generation methods. So slotted in, first off, we do have Elemental Armament to help it out just a little bit, but then we slot in Living Lightning 2. This allows it to create minions, and those minions, with the help of our next skill, Culmination, can generate combo. And since they can then generate combo, Aeolus Charms recognizes that and gives us power charges occasionally for having that interaction. So these 3 right here, and they have to be placed in this order. This one first, this one second, this one third. Otherwise they will not slot in. That is one of our automated power charge generation methods. And we do have Charge Perfusion in there to help it give us more charges at the same time. Cast on Critical is also one of our other power charge generation methods. So we have Profane Ritual slotted in to allow it to do its thing of eating the corpses and giving us power charges. Helping it out, we have Overabundance, Compressed Duration, so they generate quicker, Boundless Energy, and Energy Retention. That helps the Cast on Crit go off more often and just gives you more power charges. We do run Wind Dancer. This is defensive for us. It does a surprising amount of damage, but don't rely on it. Just if something hits you, they're going to get hurt for it. Slotted in, we do have Magnified Area 1, Pin 2, Life Leech 3, Heft, and Heavy Swing. And then down here, our last 2 moves, one of which is Spirit. These are why we need the unset rings. So as I mentioned earlier, we do have several automated power charge generation methods, but we needed something for bossing where we have nothing before it in order to ramp up and get fully buffed. So Sacrifice allows you to consume your minions in order to generate power charges, and the manual Profane Ritual is what actually does the consumption. So as you can see here, I forgot to mention this in the gearing section as well, in Weapon Set 2 I just have a random scepter that allows me to summon these guys. That's all I need it for. There does not need to be anything special on that. But with Sacrifice and Profane Ritual enabled, I can consume them on a whim to get my charge staff up and running, and I'm ready to go into a fight. If I wanted to do it again, so I have a Falling Thunder ready at the beginning of the fight, I just repeat the process, things die. So Sacrifice with Profane Ritual is your manual power charge generation method. And I do have Compressed Duration and Overabundance, same as I have on Cast on Critical, for my Profane Ritual manual cast. I am running Clarity in here on Sacrifice. This is optional. It just helps me with my mana sustain. If you can run it, great. If not, it's not a deal breaker. Alright, that should cover everything on the skill gems. Next, let's move over to the passive tree. Alright, let's cover our passive choices really quick. We do start out at the monk tree, take the skill speed. I do want to go with the crit bonus. Initially I took the attack damage here, but I spec'd out of that, went into the crit bonus. Go into here for Flow Like Water. I go up here for some extra evasion rating and energy shield. And I take the crit path out. From here we branch up and inward to get the power within. This grants us one of our power charge maximum amount. We go up here, more crit bonus and more crit damage. I do branch down here to get that extra 5% of cold damage. Heading up to our first jewel socket, I do use a Prism of Belief, and I do choose to use it on Ice Strike. I could put it on Falling Thunder and make that hit even harder, but it already hits so hard that I need to make sure that my primary move, my Ice Strike, is doing the most damage that it can. So that's why I chose the Ice Strike skill on this gem. We go up here into the triangles, I call them triangles anyway, of crit damage and crit bonus associated. This is the way I have it laid out. We go up here for a little bit of defensive. We get a lot of energy shield because we have a high evasion rating armor piece. So this is where a lot of our ES comes from. We do branch up all the way to get this gem socket. I have my Heart of the Well slotted in here. Any double damage Heart of the Well is sufficient. The other two specs that are on it can be personal preference. Crit damage is of course welcome, but if you can get crit damage or crit bonus, that's also nice. Go up here for a little bit more crit damage. We do take this little sprig. This also gives us 2 maximum power charges. So we have 2 here, 1 here, and 1 from our corrupted helmet. That is where we're getting our 7 power charges. We do branch out a little bit in both directions here, get some extra evasion rating and energy shield and resistances, more crit damage. I do spec heavily into the quarterstaff specials. They all are beneficial to the Ice Strike mentality. I do go with one with the river. This helps offset some of the detractors of evasion that we've taken so far, such as from our ascendancy, because that's taken some of our evasion rating away. We get it right back, right here. Okay. I do have a Time Lost Sapphire here that is affecting a lot of the nodes, because I have a lot that are clustered together. You've got the main damage right here. This is a good additional layer of damage that you can put into your skill set. I do go for all of the crit in this little teardrop here. And I do go for enhanced reflexes as well. This gives me a lot of deflection rating and helps, again, increase that evasion rating. Same thing with Bestial Skin, more evasion rating, and since our chest piece has the highest amount of evasion rating, we are getting a huge bonus from that. Then we venture a little farther south. I do branch off here to get the Coming Calamity. This is a double buff because we're running double Herald, so we get 2 of these 3 buffs. That's just an extra damage boost for us. And then finally, we go down here, getting a 3rd socket. I just have a regular emerald in right here. And I think our end game is to get cooked. When you have all of these crit bonus and crit strike chance nodes allocated, you do wind up with a fairly high crit chance. This is in combination with the Heart of the Well, my weapon, and all of my passive talent tree points. But getting as high of a crit chance as possible and as high of a crit damage bonus as possible is beneficial. It is fairly hard to push past this number. You can get to 500% really easy. Getting to 600 and beyond is a little bit more costly. But the build will still function perfectly fine at 450, 400%, if that's all you can attain at the time, whereas you're building into getting this build stronger. Just getting that around that mark and then adding as you can will benefit you. And that about sums it up for the passive tree. Alright, that should cover most of the bases if you're looking to construct a build similar to the one I showcased today. If you do have any questions, you can message me at Komioji in game. You can also hit me up on Discord, and I will be linking the PoE as well as the PoE Ninja site at the bottom of the YouTube page. I do hope you all enjoy it, and happy gaming!